unfortunately, we can't dig too deeply into it. Like it'd be wonderful if we could. But let's begin in Exodus. I think we'd actually kind of covered this, but I didn't want to. I wanted to, I guess, go back here, and we'll start here in Exodus chapter 12. And again, we talked about all the plagues, and we've seen the hardness of heart of Pharaoh, and he's still not ready to let them go. But this is the plague that's going to do it, and God knows. There's so much that's going on. And so we'll pick up in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 3. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make his count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year, and ye shall take it from the sheep or from the goats. And again, we mentioned it's a lamb or a kid, as it were, of the goats. And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts, on the upper doorpost of the house wherein they shall eat it. Let me pause there. That upper doorpost, you may have I know in the King James it's got a name for that. What do we call that upper doorpost?
A lintel.
A lintel, yes. So that's one thing, if you talk to some younger folks and you're going, tell them about this, and they say lintel, you may have to explain what that is. It's, again, as y'all, the upper doorpost is in the King James Version here. And they shall eat the flesh in the night, roast with fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herb. They shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire its head, with its legs, and with the pertinence thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. That pertinence there, your version may say entrails, and that kind of, you think about the intestines and various things. But when I looked up this word, it said, it mentioned the heart, the lungs, the windpipe, as it were. And so, but basically they're going to cook, if whatever they don't eat, everything's going to be, it's going to be gone. But I imagine there's certain parts that, obviously they wouldn't eat, but you're going to roast the entire thing. And as it's in verse 10, let nothing be left of it until the morning. So whatever doesn't get eaten is going to be burned up with it's going to be over the fire. There we go. And thus ye shall eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. Let me pause here. So he's letting them know up front, hey, you need to be ready. Normally you think we're going to have a meal and it's going to be kind of a little bit laid back. No, this is not going to be laid back. And when you eat this, things are going to happen rather quickly. And picking back up. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And so y'all have a picture again of the door, and we see the side post, and we see the lintel there, the top post on the top. And I guess that's exactly how they did it. And we see something here, faith and works. It references that in Hebrews 11:28. And if you turn over to 11:28, it makes mention of Moses. And as it talks about his life, and I'll pick up in verse 27, going back, I think we've already read this before. By faith, talking about Moses, he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Verse 28, by faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. So we see where Where Moses, I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to. And just that idea of faith and works, how does that work? You know, in this particular situation, how does that work? Do you think they believe God at this point?
They believe God to put the man's blood on both sides of the door and the blood of the lintel so that the death will pass over their firstborn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Brother Jolly, you had to.
It just means when God says to do something, do it.
Well, had they had evidence before this about, you know, all the plagues and stuff? And remember that the first 3 plagues actually touched them as well. You know, and obviously them being in close proximity to the Egyptians, they would have known all these things going on. And as someone, I think it was Rodney was talking, not Rodney, it was Judd, mentioned to me, and I didn't think about it, but you know, when these things are happening, they're interrupting the normal flow of life. You know, before they had been working like, you know, with rigor and all this kind of stuff. And I was talking to Judd for a moment, and he pointed that out, and I hadn't really thought of that, but yeah, life has been disrupted. And so when God says do this, and then you got to have the faith, and what should you do if you believe God? What are you going to do with the blood? Markel, what are they going to do with it? Yeah, don't forget it. Right, you make sure it's there. Exactly, and that's really the way we should be about things. Have that faith, and not just hear, but do. Actually, do what we're supposed to in service to God.
This is actually the first plague that the Israelites were asked to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
they were somewhat passive observers
mm-hmm.
of what was going on, but now getting down to the brass tacks, here's your responsibility.
And by now, as they say, their attention, that God should have their attention. So there's no misunderstandings here. It should be, there should be no question. You know, we're gonna, yeah, and like you pointed out, you know, now there's an active part that they've got to do, and if you're what you should be, as we just read about Moses, you're gonna do it. You're not gonna be like, well, I don't want. No, I'm gonna make sure it gets done. And this day shall be a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. Can y'all think of another memorial we seem to kind of, yeah, Lord's Supper. You know, and you see the significance of that. I mean, I hope all of us, when we're thinking about, you know, on that first day on taking the Lord's Supper, that it has meaning. This is what God intended, you know, when He wanted them to have this as a memorial, to keep this, you know, in front of them, as it were. Not, you know, we heard about something that happened a long time ago, and we're just kind of, no, this is something that we're going to be connected with, just like the Lord's Supper. We want to be connected with that, and as a memorial to keep that in front of us. 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation. To you no matter of the work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only be done of you. Only may be done of you. And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this selfsame day I have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore ye shall observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. And so after this was something they were commanded to do, and you know, the Passover was supposed to be a very big deal. Now let me ask y'all, knowing their history, was it always throughout their generations? They had times, yeah, that it wasn't remembered like it should have been. And so, just saying, you know, that, but there was this was a purpose, and you can see the wisdom of God in this. He wanted, as I say, I think of having the connection that they should have had with service to God and putting God first. And really, it parallels, with us today, how we're to have that relationship with God, and things that are supposed to be, fresh, not something we just, we just kind of go through the motions. No, it makes a difference. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, associated with the Passover, 7 days from the 15th to the 21st of the first month, leaven-free, not only a reminder of their hurried rescue from bondage by the power of God, but their need for purity. Unleavened bread is typical of purity of heart, leaven being an emblem of corruption. And in Matthew 16, we won't turn there, but basically, Jesus is talking to the disciples there, and he says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they misunderstood. They thought he was talking about, did you bring bread? And then they finally got it, the doctrine, the influence of their doctrine. And that the idea of like leaven can have that, doesn't take much. And also in 1 Corinthians 5 and verse 7, that's where the man had taken his father's wife, and the immorality that coming from that situation, and instead of them having the right attitude about it, they were puffed up, and they even, Paul had to get on to them like, no, this isn't right, this isn't good. No, you're not. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. And so the point of it is, we can't let any evil influence in, as it were, because it doesn't take much to kind of start affecting things. And so that's something that you got to be on guard against. And really, this is a fantastic way of teaching people, because they actually see that, you think about the leaven and the influence it can have, putting it in the dough, as it were, and how it rises. And and I don't cook, but I'll ask somebody here, does it take much leaven to put in something? Does a little bit of leaven actually, it kind of does have an effect, an influence? Okay. I don't know. It does? Okay. So I should check that out to ask some people who cook, like, does leaven, because I don't really use leaven. So actually couldn't go through that, but it actually does. The later Hebrews were Pontius in carrying out this injunction, and even before the Passover, which was also eaten with unleavened cakes, the house was elaborately searched with candles in order to discover and remove any leaven, fermented dough, or certain articles made of fermented grain. In that, the soul shall be cut off, excommunicated from the community and privileges of the chosen people. And here's a picture, I guess, of that idea of they're searching for the leaven, and I guess they find a little bit on the table there or something. So I guess that would be a really big deal if God said no leaven, and you do not want to have that anywhere near during that time of the month, or the time of that around that time of the year. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening you shall eat unleavened bread until the 1 and 20th day of the month at evening, so the 21st day. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Whether he be a stranger or born in the land, ye shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations shall you eat unleavened bread. So there's no gray area here. It's like no leaven, But can I have just... No. There is no gray area here. On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the seventh day a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days, but what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared by you. So on the first day and seventh day there was to be a holy convocation, an assembly at the sanctuary for religious purposes. In this convocation is a word similar import with the Greek, and I don't know if I can't read Greek, which we commonly translate church, and what properly signifies an assembly convened by public call. Such assemblies were held on the weekly Sabbath, Pentecost, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles. It signifies a meeting or solemn assembly of the whole people for the purpose of worshiping at a common sanctuary. So God is laying out all the things that they need to know, to make sure that they get it right. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover, and ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in blood that is in the basin. And that's in New King James, it actually spells it, basin like we would normally say. I guess King James, you'll see some things a little odd, I guess. And strike the lintel and the two side posts with blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. The Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and you will not suffer the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. So who passed through the land to plague the people? Kind of a little bit of a trick question there. Yes?
Well, the scripture says the Lord.
Yeah, it would be the Lord. But the Lord, and as we see the destroyer, the verb means to utterly ruin. The participle here means the destroying one. Clearly God's work, but language seems to show God's use of agency in bringing this plague of death. And that's one of the things that you see, God brings about the punishment, as it were. He's behind it. He's one. But you'll see angels that are involved, destroying angels, if you will. In this case, the destroyer. And so, by means of the destroyer, always under his direction, as it were. He's the one who gives the direction. His angel that brings death, it will pass over and not kill your firstborn sons. The destroying angel. And in 2 Samuel 24, 15, 16, that's where David had numbered the people. And then he relented. He realized that God sent the prophet and told him, choose three things of what kind of punishment you want. And David said, let me fall into your hands. And so there was a plague, and this destroying angel, as it were, was going through. And I think when it got to Jerusalem, when it's getting ready to destroy in Jerusalem, God relented and no, don't do that, and it didn't. But I want to say about 70,000 people died, and that's where was it the threshing floor of Arona that he wound up buying that. And one of the famous things that comes out of that, the guy wanted to give it to him, and David was like, I will not worship the Lord with that which cost me nothing. And so he set up the altar there that he was supposed to, and the plague was stopped, but it was a destroying angel. And then in the other one, in Isaiah 37, if you remember, with Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, he was going up against Jerusalem, and God, right before that, had basically, through Isaiah, basically said, he will not come here, he will not shoot an arrow. And in one night, I think that this angel or an angel went, and I want to say, I think it killed 185,000 in one night. When they woke up, I guess there was dead people everywhere, and they decided to leave. We think we're going back home now, and 185,000. That would be something. But the idea is, they when God brings about destruction, it can be tremendous. It can absolutely be tremendous, and that's what we've been seeing against the Egyptians, and that's what we're going to see even more against the Egyptians. He let loose on them his burning anger, wrath, indignation, distress, a company of destroying angels, or in the New King James, it's the angels of destruction. So basically, that's how God chose to bring about these things that happened. And but it was God's judgment though, and so very, very, you would not want to be in the place of if the judgment's coming against you, and so he used these, and obviously, and I'm going to ask y'all this. See if y'all can institution of Passover. Do y'all see something wrong with this slide? Selected when? Shouldn't it be the first month? 10th day?
Speaking of the seventh month, no, I don't think so. This is a new calendar.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be the first month.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the first, that's what I'm saying, not the 7th month, but the first month. Yeah, I mentioned that to Wes. I think he tried to change it, and I thought it didn't happen, so I thought, I'll just throw that at y'all and let y'all kind of, so it should be the first month, 10th day, and then on the first month, 14th day is when they actually did it. They actually killed it. They chose it on the 10th, the first month, 10th day, and they actually at evening they killed it on the 14th day. So, not the 7th month. And roasted and no bone broken, eaten in the house one night, leftovers destroyed. So there was nothing left over. And ye shall observe this thing in an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass when ye come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye this service? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshiped. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they. So I think we're seeing now, there's no, well, what about this? Or do I really have to? I think they got completely on board with what they were told to do. There was no dissension. There was no, trying to shortcut anything. We're going to do it like God says. And wouldn't that be beautiful if everybody did that? Always try to, God gives us direction. Follow that direction. Don't add to and don't take away from. So we get to Exodus 12, 29, and 30, and I'll read that. Exodus 12, 29, and 30. Or 29, yeah. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. So Pharaoh rose in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And let me ask y'all this. Now this is at night, this is about midnight, so you wouldn't think that would be a time that people would be up. It's been dark for a while. Why do you think that they got up and they were checking on their children, checking on their firstborn? You think they had some kind of thought that something was going to happen? With all the things that had gone on, I think so. I don't think they slept very well that night. I don't think everybody just like, we won't worry about this. Well, we'll see what happens in the morning. I think they were on ready, thinking, maybe this isn't going to happen, or they were hoping, surely, no. And I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to make their house as secure as possible and not going to let this happen. Didn't matter how secure you made your house. This is a judgment from God. Yes. Go ahead.
I wonder if there were any Egyptians with blood on their doorposts.
It makes you wonder if they found out about it. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. With all the stuff that you've seen, wouldn't you start thinking, hey, yes, there is a God, and He's the God of the Hebrews, and I don't want to go against Him. So yeah, it may very well have been. Any thoughts on that or anything before I move on?
Hey, Don,
Yes.
verse 30.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe from that verbiage it tells us that they didn't actually do it. Maybe they thought about it, but it talks about there was not a house where no one was dead.
So yes.
Am I reading that right? Or
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
yeah, Pharaoh rose to the night, he and all his servants in all Egypt, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So yes, you make they apparently they didn't do that. They didn't, it makes you would think that there would be some that's like, I mean, I would like to think that there were, like today, that there are honest hearts that when they hear the gospel, they want to believe it. And they want to look at it and say, that's what God wants, I'm going to do it. But and appreciate you pointing that out, Chris, it appears that there weren't any Egyptians that actually survived. There was not a house where there's not one dead. So apparently they didn't do that. Maybe they thought about doing that, but they didn't do that. And so, there was not one house where there was not one dead. So that kind of lets you know exactly that the death came for all. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said, and take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And notice that point, he said things like that when he said something to Moses. But, those little things like, and bless me also. Again, to me, when I think about him, I can see that arrogance, that pride, and it's kind of like me. And so you can see that he did have that stubborn heart. And as you had said, be gone and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we are all dead men. So the point came across. It didn't matter what they did to try to secure their house or whatever. Maybe we're awake and we're gonna keep watch. We're not going to sleep. We're going to keep watch. It doesn't matter. And that's exactly what happened, is that this angel of death goes through. And in Bob's material here, one thing he said, notice that the common Egyptian and all of Pharaoh's servants have learned great respect for this man Moses and for the people he represents. They will be ready to give whatever they have when the moment comes for the Israelites to ask for their possessions. So they've been asking for stuff, and you can see that they've already been asking for things. And the people, how they look at the Israelites, I got to imagine they got to be. And now, this right here, it's like they're anything they want. You want it, you got it. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneeling troughs, and being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And so the point is, anything they wanted, and I imagine they were like, give them whatever they want and send them out of here. Just get them out here as fast as, because if they don't go, we're all dead people. We're all dead men. And remembering back in Genesis what's happened, Israel has lived 400 years in a land not their own. They have served as slaves. Their enslavers have been punished, or they're going through this punishment. It's not over yet, but they will be completely punished. As time goes on, it's going to get worse for the Egyptians. Israel is leaving with great possessions. God's plan is right on time. So all these different things, people look at things and we think this might happen this way or that way. God knows, no question about it. He knows exactly. And that's why I say when we study this, I hope that's something that comes across to us, that, when God tells us something, He knows. When God expects something from us, and tells us how he wants it taken care of, he knows. And so, we need to submit, And the Egyptians have had to learn this the hard way, and it's a lesson that, they're going to take it to heart. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men besides children, and a mixed multitude went up with them in flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough, which they had brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared them for themselves any victual. And the thing is, they had no true preparations done. I mean, as far as for food and that kind of stuff, they were eating. They were literally, as it were, it seemed like eating on the run. And so we see here the possible way that they went out. One thing I wanted to read here about when we look at this stuff and we look at how they went. In Bob's material, it's hopeless to think that we can be exact about the route of Exodus. Different authorities give different routes. Some of them reflect respect for the Bible record. Others completely disregard the facts given in the Bible. So the thing is, we really don't know. You honor the inspired record and not the uninspired speculations of men. So the exact point at which they crossed the Red Sea is unknown. It is somewhere at the very northern end of the Red Sea. That point right there, I think it's called the Gulf of Suez. Probably on the northern tip of the Gulf of Suez, as is shown on this map, because they crossed into the Sinaitic Peninsula, not into the Arabian Desert. If they'd gone, if the map was bigger, they didn't go down into the Arabian Desert. The Sinai Peninsula is where they were headed. And so we've already read this part. This is like a second slide with the same thing, but 600,000 men plus, and that'd be 600,000 men implies a total, including women and children, of at least 2 million souls. Israel is a nation. The numbers are there. They are. It's rather large now. We just see 600,000 men, but then with all the children and then the women and that kind of stuff, it could easily be 2 million souls. Mixed multitude, and there's two possible things. It could refer to the descendants of the servants of the Israelites. And you remember when they went down into Egypt, they were wealthy people and servants and that kind of thing. So it could be descendants of the servants the Israelites had when they came to Egypt, or it could refer to Semitic persons with similar ancestry to Israel that had likewise been brought into bondage in Egypt. So the point is, there were others there, and but they could be servants, or they could be some descendants, in some form or fashion there. But there were others, a mixed multitude, and so they're actually they're sharing in everything that the Israelites are. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And I'll pause here. There are some people that take that to mean 430 years total from when going back to like Abraham. And then there's others who take the thing that it means literally while they were in Egypt, if you will. And that's what I tend to think, that it kind of, and if you remember, we just looked at it just a few moments ago back in Genesis 15. God said 400 years. I think 400 years was just a round figure instead of God being, exact and, saying how many years, days, months, how we tend to look at things now. I think, what is it, when the football season kicks off, on one of the things it shows down to the days, the hours, minutes, and all this kind of stuff. But I think God was just using a round figure, 400 years. So who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day, it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the night this is the night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. So after this point, this is going to be something that goes down through the generations. When the time of Passover comes, there's a certain way that you observe it, and it's very consistent. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall be no stranger eat thereof, but every manservant that is bought for money, which hath circumcised him, shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. And that's pretty interesting too, because we see a connection here. And when you look at things and you see parallels and that have significance, and in and of itself you might not think anything, but when you look at other things, and here it points out in John chapter 19, 33 through 37. But when they came to Jesus and him hanging on the cross and saw that he was dead already, they brake not his legs, but one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came out blood and water. And he that saw it bear record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe. For these things were done, that the scripture should be fulfilled. A bone of him shall not be broken. And again, another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they have pierced. It's very interesting. There's some things that do have connections and stuff. And so, very interesting. So the Passover, not to break a bone thereof, and the sacrifice that for us, not to break a bone thereof. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. And so we're going to get into that later, but certain things about how they're to be redeemed, if you will, things that are clean and unclean, and various things. To sanctify means to consecrate, to set apart, from a common to a sacred use. The foundation of this duty rested on the fact that the Israelites, having had their firstborn preserved by a distinguishing act of grace from the general destruction that overtook the families of the Egyptians, were bound in token of gratitude to consider them as Lord's peculiar property. And in Hebrews 12:22, but ye are come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven. And obviously there in Hebrews, you look at Hebrews, and these are Jewish Christians who are in danger of going back. And the covenant that we're under is so much more. But you see parallels, and you see things like the church of the firstborn. The firstborn, very significant to God. They are His. And so... because of going back to the Passover, because he spared them the firstborn, and so there's that connection there, if you will. And so and again, we don't have time to really get into it, but to look into that and to see, to go to Hebrews and to look at that and to see how much more superior, but it gives us a foundation to understand why God would have said it like that. The church of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven. We're coming to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God. And so just saying those things that the Israelites would have held so special, now there's something better. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thy hand, and a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in this season from year to year. And then show your son. This is the knowledge of God to be passed on from parent to child. And I like that in Judges chapter 7. That's something that we should be very familiar with. That was, and I'll go ahead and read part of that because this is a mistake that we can make today. This is something that I'll just read verse 10. And this is talking about this is around the time of the death of Joshua. In verse 10 of Judges 2, and when all that generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord nor the work which he had done for Israel. So God is trying to get them, you keep this in front of your children. This is something they need to know. And that's a lesson for us today. The things, we've got children and we want them to know. We want to keep these things right there in front of them. And so they truly understand. And we don't want, your kids, your grandkids find out, they don't have the knowledge they should. What did you not teach them? Well, unfortunately, from that we see that there was something lacking because a generation arose that knew not God. And that should never be. And then in Proverbs, it talks about writing on the tablet of your heart. This idea there's things that you bind. They're supposed to be right there, and they're not. You're supposed to keep them close, and that would certainly be the Word of God and the things that He would have us to know. The Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread was to be a memorial and a sign, and we'll pretty much have to call it here. But I appreciate all your kind attention and comments.